Hey, what's up guys, Rev here. So since its release about a week ago, Concord has been a big topic of discussion, and today I have some insane news regarding this game. So thanks to an official post by Sony, we can now say that Concord might go down as the biggest flop in gaming history. Now, Concord always had some big aspirations. After all, this was a game that was in development for 8 years at Firewalk Studios, and it is rumored that this game had a $200 million budget. And after the release of this game back in late August, the development team said that they are strapped in and ready to push this game for years to come. Well, the results of this release were abysmal. We have seen these numbers many times, the all-time peak at 660 players, and over the past couple of days, that total peak number barely getting into the few dozen. It is really, really rough, especially for a 5v5 type game where you can barely even form a lobby nowadays. And even PC Gamer and other journalists who are propping up this game have to face the reality that it's essentially over. They can barely even function as a game anymore. Now, all throughout this, Firewalk on their Concord and other related accounts, they have been pretty quiet. Actually, shockingly quiet as all of this has been happening. In fact, on the official Concord account here, we got the first post in really quite some time that happened earlier this afternoon, where Concord announced that they're going to be doing a shutdown for maintenance. Well, it turns out there might be a much bigger shutdown coming, because only 1 hour after that post, PlayStation made an official statement on their account saying this: an important update on Concord from Firewalk Studios. So here's the statement, let's read it real quick. Concord fans, we've been listening closely to your feedback since the launch of Concord on PlayStation 5 and PC, and want to thank everyone who has joined the journey aboard the North Star. Your support and passionate community that has grown around the game has meant the world to us. However, many qualities of the experience resonated with players. We also recognize that other aspects of the game and our initial launch didn't land the way we intended. Therefore, at this time, we have decided to take the game offline beginning September 6th, 2024, and explore options including those that will better reach our players. While we determine the best path forward, Concord sales will cease immediately, and we'll begin to offer full refunds for all gamers who have purchased the game for PS5 or PC. If you purchase the game for PlayStation 5 from the PlayStation Store or PlayStation Direct, a refund will be issued back to your original payment method. Customers who purchase from other digital storefronts will also be refunded. More information can be found below. So yes, they are completely shutting this down. I cannot stress upon you enough how big of a deal this is. This is unprecedented. Okay, this is a AAA release that barely over a week since its release is announcing that they're shutting down. Things are so unfixable that they're shutting the entire thing down and giving refunds. This might be the biggest flop in gaming history. Now, it was reported just this morning that Concord had finally passed $1 million in sales. Now, they are, of course, going to refund all of that $1 million, and I think that's a no-brainer for Sony, okay? It makes sense, because do you want to lose, based on the rumored $200 million budget, do you want to lose $199 million and keep the $1 million and have a lot of bad PR, or do you just want to give up that last $1 million, give up $200 million total, lose it all, and try to save some face? I think the decision is a very obvious one. At that point, the $1 million represents 0.5% of their total budget for this game. So I think that was a very obvious move. And if they kept moving forward, especially without giving refunds, there might have been a class action lawsuit about this, but that's a whole headache. They obviously didn't want to deal with that. So now we're seeing this cataclysmic flop. And a lot of people are thinking, well, what went wrong? Well, a lot of things. I think this was a bad timing of a bad concept, or at least an outdated one. This was supposed to be an offshoot or a clone of Overwatch, and like I said, this started in 2016, so here we are in 2024. Not even Overwatch players want to play Overwatch anymore, so they're definitely not going to play your dollar store knockoff of Overwatch. And on top of that, there is very bad perception of this game. The optics surrounding it are horrible. there's a very obvious woke agenda going on here that's already turning off a lot of players, but there's also an active disdain for their own customer base. We have seen the lead character designer on many different occasions say things like this, that whites must acknowledge their privileged position and then actively work for equality. Also had said that the judicial system in the United States is the product of white supremacy and nothing else. And when you look at the character designs, it's very obvious that their attitude is reflected in the designs of these characters. And these character designs are just not great. And they don't resonate with a lot of people, okay? And I think it's very obvious they are the product of an agenda. And one character in particular was making history earlier today. This character named Baz right here. So basically, as their last official move, Concord announced some new lore regarding this character, and they went on the record and said that this character is trans and that they went through a gender transition. And you saw just this morning articles coming out claiming that this character is the first playable black trans woman in a AAA release. And then, just hours later, it was announced that this game is shutting down. We all know that a lot of this is attempts at virtue signaling and agenda pushing, okay? I think it shows where the minds of the people who created this game were truly at. It was more focused on pushing agenda than making a good game, and it really shows. And also, what a backfire, right? So now, they have this first ever playable black trans woman in a AAA release associated with one of the biggest flops in gaming history. It's like a total backfire, and people are making fun of this entire situation. But on top of that, there's some other stuff to talk about with this game. So a former developer at Firewalk Studios also said this when people were criticizing the game and saying that basically, sorry that you were associated with such a flop. They turned around and said, I don't care what a bunch of talentless freaks have to think about this game. Well, it turns out those talentless freaks were right because this game is now being shut down. Things like this were just another example of bad PR heading their way. But another thing we need to talk about is the effort of games journalists when it came to Concord. They were doing everything in their power to pump some life into this game leading up to its release and even in the few days after its release. They did everything they can. You can see articles like this from the gamer saying, let's give Concord a chance. They were just begging people to play this game. In fact, we saw a reporter at IGN respond to someone basically saying this game is bad, stop promoting it, where they in turn said, not too late to become a decent human being. Essentially saying, if you don't like this game, you're not a decent human being. That is crazy. In fact, IGN would go on to give this game a 7 out of 10 rating. The same rating they gave Dustborn, and just 1 point lower than Black Myth Wukong's score. Just sit on that for a second. But it gets even worse for IGN because just a few days ago, they were trying desperately to promote this game, even admitting it's not the best game ever, but you should still try it and it has a lot of potential. But then today, in wake of the announcement from Sony, they're now sharing the news that this game is shutting down just because they want some engagement and ad revenue on Twitter with the clicks that come from this announcement. So once again, having to basically eat the results of this whole situation and admit that Concord is a failure despite trying to pump some life into it for weeks on end. So overall, what a disaster. I mean, there's no other way of saying this. This was one of the biggest flops in gaming history. Many people will consider this the singular biggest flop in gaming history. And it really should just, teach some lessons. I think there should be some lessons learned here. But are the people in the gaming industry and games journalists, are they going to learn anything from this? No, they're already getting angry about this and they're going to lash out. That's their new tactic right now. It's not even trying to argue with you. They just lash out in anger when you prove once again that gamers are right. They know what they want and they know that games like this are going to fail, but nobody in the gaming industry wants to listen. And guess what? You reap what you sow. You messed around and you found out, and Concord is just the latest example of that trend. But for now, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time.